Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and we have more news about the illegal immigration problem that we're facing just daily now, especially in the southern United States. There's actually two today that came up on my feed. One of them surprisingly good, and one of them not unexpected. Hostile migrants break border gate, forcibly enter Mexico, attack police. A group of around 350 migrants, quit calling them that, they are invaders, attempting to join a caravan on the way to the United States, broke the locks and forced their way through a gate between Mexico and Guatemala on Friday. The National Immigration Institute said the migrants, invaders, likely from Central America, behaved in a hostile and aggressive manner and even attacked police in the Mexican border village of Metapa, according to an AP report. The group then merged into another caravan of around 2,000 migrants making their way to Tapachula on their journey to the United States. One migrant, 43-year-old Honduran Claudia Jacqueline Sandoval, told the press that she has been HIV positive for 16 years. Friday's action was the latest example of escalating tension on the border between Mexico and Central America. Earlier this week, a group of Cuban and African migrants staged a riot at a Tapachula immigration station in an attempt to prevent authorities from deporting them, according to several Mexican media outlets. They reportedly ransacked the building and set several documents on fire before authorities regained control. This is honestly just proof that the liberals don't care about the United States or any other country's sovereignty. We have a report here that supposed migrants, these are invaders, illegally entered Mexico by destroying their border barrier and then attacked the police. Also, in an immigration station, they rioted, ransacked a building, and destroyed government documents to prevent them being deported. We even have a woman who says she has been HIV positive for 16 years. So we have disease and violence headed toward our border. Yet the Democratic Party decided that after 8 years of Barack Obama enforcing immigration law, it is now morally wrong to enforce the law that they passed. I don't really know how much longer we can go on and have so many people just ignorant to the truth that we are being invaded by violent thugs. They're now no longer even trying to portray themselves as anything but. By attacking Mexican police, they are proving that they feel they are above the law. And while Hillary sits and says not Donald Trump is not above the law, she defends these people who violate the law in any country they go to, save their own by leaving, and then demand we not employ all avenues to enforce our law. Border barriers are immoral and wrong, but barriers on the border to their homes, like Hillary's or Pelosi's or Waters, Feinstein's, Harris's, Booker's, whoever else's, well, that's to protect my home. I have the right to protect my home, but you don't have the right to protect your home state, your home country, from these invaders. But in a bit of good news, the Ninth Circuit Court deals Trump an immigration win. Yes, you read that right. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals temporarily lifted an order suspending the migrant protection protocols, a Trump administration policy that requires Central American asylum seekers to remain in Mexico before their appearance in immigration court. Though the Friday evening stay is not indicative of the government's future prospects in this case, it is a rare victory for an administration that has often struggled before the left-leaning court. Finally, great news at the border. President Donald Trump tweeted Friday night. Former Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen began implementing the MPP in December 2018 following negotiations with the Mexican government. The government claimed the program is authorized by provision of federal law, allowing the Attorney General to return aliens arriving from neighboring countries. The provision provides, in the case of an alien who is arriving on land from a foreign territory contiguous to the United States, the Attorney General may return that alien to that territory, pending further proceedings before an immigration judge. A coalition of immigrant advocacy groups sued, arguing the MPP deprives migrants of a meaningful opportunity to seek asylum, since they are returned to violent areas without resources to fully prepare their case. U.S. District Judge Richard Seaborg agreed and issued a preliminary injunction against the government on Monday. He also found the government Pardon me. He also found the government may have violated the Administrative Procedure Act, or APA, which sets standards for the issuance of new government rules. The injunction, which applied across the entire nation, was set to take effect Friday night. In its emergency motion for a stay of Seaborg's order, the government emphasized that the MPP is a lawful component of a new security and foreign policy strategy assembled in view of the escalating crisis on the southern border. The Ninth Circuit's stay will remain in effect for a matter of days, pending full resolution of the government's motion. The administration hopes the migrant protection protocols will deter meritless asylum seekers while clearing a backlog of asylum applications that is now approaching 1 million. I've said this in past videos, and I'm going to say it again. Asylum is not a right because you are requesting it. You cannot request asylum because you're poor. You cannot request asylum because you are jealous of the quality of life in another country. Asylum is for those fleeing violence and political persecution, fleeing threats of death. If you cannot prove that you have a valid reason to be granted asylum, you are denied asylum. The problem is that liberals now demand that the word asylum be a magical spell that automatically grants you entry into the U.S. and a paper that says, please, please, please return for your hearing, while they then vanish into the endless woodwork of the country. Most of them, the vast majority, never show up for their court hearing. So it's so important that they be granted asylum that they don't even show up to their hearing. I'm waiting, honestly, for a court case to make national headlines where the headline will read something akin to asylum seeker wrongfully denied access to immigration law attorneys because they did not show up for their first hearing. If you are issued a document saying you must appear in court on a given date to defend yourself in any criminal or civil court, and you do not appear, do you know what happens? You're charged with a crime, failure to appear. You're generally also considered in absentia in the other crime, in the other trial. I can tell you my own family has been fighting in court for quite some time over a civil issue where the plaintiff, or he may have been the defendant, I don't know, the other party basically never showed up. There were failure to appear warrants issued. He claimed that he never was given the date. The person serving the failure to appear told him, well, here's the next date, and he never showed. Ultimately, he was considered an absentia and was ruled against. If you don't show up for your trial, that to me is an instant indicator that your asylum claim was false. It was a ruse to get into the country and then vanish. If we don't stop the influx of illegal aliens, I will no longer call them migrants. I've hated that term since the beginning of its use. My great-grandfather was a migrant. He boarded a ship from Europe, Germany specifically, came to the United States legally. He was granted the entry that he legally applied for. He then learned the language. He began a farm and became a very productive member of society and very valuable member of his small town. He raised a family that produced productive members of society. Ultimately, my father, who after serving in the U.S. military during Vietnam, worked for a major railroad and later opened his own business. And yet, because he did it legally, we now associate the same term that described him in the late 1800s to people who violently bust through the southern border of Mexico, assaulting police officers, rioting and destroying government documents to prevent their deportation, who openly admit they carry a disease that is ravaging our country. But we are not allowed to even suggest that they not be allowed entry until an immigration court has ruled on their case. My message to this immigration advocacy group: head for Ciudad Acuña, head for Tijuana, and the other border cities where these migrants, as you call them, are being held. Cross into Mexico. Do so legally, I would advise. But why don't these advocacy people go to these towns where they're being kept and help them there with their supposed asylum case. And I'll tell you why. They know that, one, these asylum cases, by and large, and I would say 90 to 95% or more, are baseless and will be denied no matter who the attorney helping the illegal alien is. They also know that it is a violent area because of these illegal aliens. If you look at Tijuana, Ciudad Acuña, Nuevo Laredo, these towns were not very long ago very peaceful, very pretty towns. You could go and you could enjoy a vacation and you could enjoy another culture for a day or two. Now, you have to have an armed escort to get into them and out of them safely because of the influx of these illegal aliens who are demanding that United States law not apply to them. This is an untenable situation, plain and simple. Barack Obama did as little as he had to legally, and Congress said nothing when he did enforce the law. Now that Donald Trump is actively and legally enforcing the law, 535 members of Congress are doing nothing. Those who agree with him are rightly not demanding we let them in, but they're also not vocal enough in demanding that the liberals put up or shut up. And by that I mean Miss Pelosi, Miss Ocasio-Cortez, Miss Waters, Miss Feinstein, uh, Miss Omar, Mr. Sanders, Booker. All of you listen very closely. United States immigration law has been set because it was introduced as a bill in Congress. It was passed by both houses. It was then signed into law by the president. Maybe you should go back and watch Schoolhouse Rock on how a bill becomes a law to know the proper procedure. If you do not like a law that is currently on the books, you do not go on CNN or MSNBC or stand in front of the Capitol at a news conference and demand that the law not be enforced. You introduce a bill that would negate the law, repeal it, or edit it in some way. Get that law passed by both houses and get it signed into law by the president, or override a veto if he vetoes it. But the reason they don't do this is that all of the Democrats in Congress know very well the instant they introduce legislation that says we have no borders, the instant they have any inkling of introducing a bill that would say immigration law is repealed, anyone can just walk in whenever they want, no vetting, not even a question asked, they will be out of office so fast their heads will spin for decades. They know even their own constituents know it is monumentally stupid to suggest that our border not be protected, but they've managed to dupe enough of them to hold protests and rallies and then return home to their walled and gated communities. Idiots like Alyssa Milano or Cher, who at one point were demanding our border law not be enforced and our border just be opened for the humanitarian crisis at the border, now protest and scream in outrage that Donald Trump may be sending these supposed migrants, illegal alien invaders in reality, to sanctuary cities. And now that that has been suggested, they openly admit what we've known for months, longer really, that if he does this, these people, once there, will become worse criminals. They will not be productive members of society. They will be living on the streets, harassing the residents of that city, and putting an immense burden on said sanctuary city. And they know this. They also don't want them to be there because with this many people coming, they know that if they're all dumped in New York or California, an already blue state, they can't be allowed to vote illegally and change the course of American politics. These idiots, these hypocrites, are demanding that we change our laws to suit them. I wonder what would happen, how fast Alyssa Milano would support the border barrier if a few hundred illegal aliens suddenly set up their homeless camp around her home, or even within a mile of her home, where she had to see it every day. How quickly would she demand they be arrested and deported for bringing down the value and serenity of the neighborhood? Each one of them who has spoken out in defense of sanctuary policy and then in opposition to sending illegal aliens to said sanctuary policy cities are hypocrites. All of them. And they know it and they don't care because they have millions and millions of dollars. They can put their stupid little ads on television demanding a state they do not live in obey them and not the voters of the state. They can be brought onto news show after news show after op-ed show after op-ed show where they tearfully bemoan the humanitarian crisis as they order us to take them in and keep them far away from their own home. The Ninth Circuit ruled correctly. It is not legally required that illegal aliens be set free in the country they illegally entered when they simply utter the word asylum. Returning them to the country they entered from is legal. And unfortunately, we're having to teach judges what the word legal or illegal means in the context of, was a law broken? Yes, it was. Therefore, it is an illegal act. Therefore, we return said illegal person to where we legally may return them to. But that doesn't fit the liberal narrative. The liberal narrative wants to hide the fact that we are being invaded by violent thugs and people with diseases that will ravage our country, who may also be bringing drugs or other criminal activity with them, because that's the only way they're ever going to gain control of Congress or the White House again, is with illegal voters. And unfortunately, their money allows them to keep yammering on incessantly. I personally, as I've said, I have not paid for a movie on my own in over 3 years. There were two that my nephew, after earning straight A's for every grade, every term, every test all year long, wanted to see. One this most recent year, as he is homeschooled and is finished, and one last year. So I took him to see those. The other was Dinesh D'Souza's Death of a Nation, which my parents wanted to see, so I took them. That's it. This coming from someone who was used to seeing every major superhero movie, every science fiction movie, generally 3 to 4 movies a month. And I'm down to 3 in 2 years. So that's me 3 times, my parents is 5. That is 6 tickets from 36 to 48 tickets a year decline. If we all do this and Hollywood sees their money going down, maybe they'll realize telling a sovereign nation to ignore their own laws so that thugs and disease can make it in isn't quite the right idea. Maybe then they will finally shut up and act. But only time will tell. I've talked long enough about this. Let me know what you think. Keep the comments civil. We only learn from debate, not argument. Also, please like and share the video. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications as well so that you can be the first to see any new content I post. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.